Thank you so much for making the time to come on this show, sir. It's an honor to have you here. And by the way, you're the very first guest, if one may call you that, on Impact Players. So this is the very first episode, and technically, you're the opening batsman.
Thank you, Ashwin, for having me here because it's a great privilege. And yes, I've loved opening whenever I played cricket, so I'm used to it.
Oh, fabulous. The ball's not going to do much here, don't worry. So, to begin with, sir, how have you been spending this lockdown period? I mean, it's frustrating for a lot of people, but how have you managed?
I have managed because it's given me so much of time to interact with my wife and son. All these years I was traveling, running around, sportsmen, cricketers, doing my office work. So it gives me a lot of time to spend with them, catch up with a lot of reading because I had bought so many books which I had not even opened ever. So I'm reading all those books, catching up with some music, movies, and calling up friends. And it's been good. I mean, as far as people are feeling I mean, they are pained sitting at home, but I think I have made the most of it.
What new skill sets have you acquired during this period?
Yes, new skills. I've been doing the dishes at home, so if you can call it skills, because it's that's my routine. We have at home we have distributed work, so I am very good at doing dishes and helping my wife in the kitchen. I have improved my writing skills because I get a lot of time to write now.
So, can we expect a new book or is there a new project underway?
Yes, Ashwin. Maybe in less than a month from now, my book with my friend Gulu Ezekiel. It's a book on fast bowlers of India, and then will be followed by a book by my son Akshay, who's doing a book on Indian badminton, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
assisting him. So he's the main author,
Oh,
and
that's
both the
interesting.
books, yeah, and both the books are being published by Bloomsbury. It's a very prestigious publishing house.
Oh, that's great, sir. Looking forward. I'll purchase both books. Just let me know when they're out.
No, no, I'll
No, no,
give
no.
you
I'll
the
buy it.
link.
And I'm also going to buy a Virat book. So we'll get to that also. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to start with, sir, let's start with where it all began. I mean, pre-journalism, what was your childhood like? And were you a sporty kid? How did this come about?
Oh, I loved sports. I would play a lot of cricket and football. I grew up in Hyderabad house, and my childhood friend Gauss Mohammed, who went on to represent Delhi as a goalkeeper, and he became a very reputed commentator with Doordarshan, and he's covered Olympics and Asian Games. So he was the one who backed me. We would play lots of cricket and football. So
Mhm.
my childhood was spent playing, and then of course my interest for cricket grew. And the first time I remember when in 1969 when the Australians visited India, Ian Chappell, Bill Lawry, they were the big names in the Australian team. Graham McKenzie, I remember the fast bowler. My mother, she gifted me a season ticket. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, season ticket. I think it cost 26 rupees, which was quite a lot. And she was very keen that I'm so interested in cricket. So thanks to her, I could see a test match at the Ferozshah Kotla, and I saw some of these great players: Tiger Pataudi, Ajit Patekar, Gundappa Vishwanath, Prasanna Bedi. These were all. I mean, I was so lucky, and all thanks to my mother. She actually was the one who sort of created this interest in me to watch cricket, follow cricket, and thanks to her, I could watch the test match.
That's fabulous. So, actually, back then in the late 70s and early 80s, taking up sport wasn't an industry yet. So, taking up sport as a profession, let alone sports journalism, would have raised a few eyebrows. Didn't your parents ever have anything to say about it? Everybody wanted to be an engineer, a doctor, a banker, or whatever else.
No, my father was he had a very a very encouraging bend as far as my career was concerned. He was the one who inculcated in me the habit of reading newspapers, reading
Okay.
books, and if you know Harsha Bhogle, his father
Of
would,
course.
yeah, he would come and he would always come and stay with us, and he would every time he would come home, he would gift me a book. So I picked up these habits even as a teenager. So my father he would make me sit and read the newspaper, ensuring that I pronounced well, my pronunciation was in place, my English was in place. There are times when I would not understand a word, so he would tell me the meaning. I would sit with the dictionary in hand. So those were great days. And to become a journalist, my father left it to me. He knew that I used to write well. I was good in essay writing. But ultimately, the one who really pushed me into it was my friend Gauss Mohammed. He said that you have to write, you have to be a
Hmm.
journalist. You know, you follow the sport so closely, and he knew that I wrote well. So credit to him.
Okay. And have your parents influenced your style of writing as well?
See, my mother was a voracious reader, but she read Marathi books. It was my responsibility to go to the Maharashtra Information Center in Connaught Place,
Hmm.
and I would get the books for her. Or sometimes I would take her to the library, and she would pick the books she wanted. Otherwise, she had to depend on me. Whatever books I got from the library, she would read. But she was a voracious reader, so I picked up that habit from her. And my father always encouraged me. He would also give me money to go and buy magazines. And I remember Sports Week and then later Sports Star. The newspaper man would deliver at home. So, I'm grateful to my parents.
Without knowing that, you worked 35 years with a Hindu. You were getting Sports Star at home.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. So
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it was a great magazine. Yeah.
it was. It still is. How did it happen? Your first job?
Not really. We used to play cricket, so I and Gauss would go to the Patriot newspaper office. We would give them the scores, they would publish, and then it so happened that Mr. Bishan Singh Bedi, when he retired, I was not very happy with the tributes written to him on his retirement.
Hmm.
So I sort of shot off a letter to Patriot and Indian Express. Patriot carried it as an article, and Mr. PVR Menon was a sports editor. He liked it a lot. He said, "Why don't you write regularly?" And I would write profiles of college sportsmen. And the trigger for me was Mr. Bedi, who he gave me a letter, handwritten note on my
Okay.
article, which I have preserved even today. Ashwin, I have that
Wow.
letter with me. So that was a
Hmm.
big event. I mean, when I showed it to my father, he was so proud that Mr. Bedi had written a letter congratulating me on my writing. So from there, I just took off. Then there was a children's magazine. I used to write for them. They wanted me to do a series on Asian Games because this was in 1981 and Asian Games were going to come. So
Hmm.
I did the series on Asian Games for them. Then there was an India-England Test match at the Ferozshah Kotla. And I remember 23rd of December. I got to cover that Test match, sitting there and watching some of the biggest names in cricket writing, sharing the same working place with them was a big encouragement actually. And from there, I realized that probably I have a career in this. So I
Okay.
stuck to it. I wrote for the Patriot, and then when 1986 Hindu was launching a Delhi edition, I joined the Hindu. A
Okay.
lot of people had applied. I also applied, and
Hmm.
I remember I was asked to go and report a match. Luckily, there was only cricket match that day. So I went to the cricket match at Modern School, came back, wrote a report in I think 20 minutes. They liked it because they found it flawless, and I got a call and I joined the Hindu. Mr.
Wow.
KP Mohan, yeah, Mr. KP Mohan was there. He had been with the Hindu since 1978. That's the time
Hmm.
Sports Star had been launched, and I could not have had a better mentor to work with. He actually shaped my career. I got a
Okay.
break. thanks to Mr. Ramakrishnan at the Children's World, Mr. PVR Menon at Patriot, but I owe it to KP Mohan, because he taught me journalism, he taught me objective writing, and he guided me. So he, not just me, he has guided a whole lot of people. There is, if you see Rakesh Rao and Kamesh Srinivasan, my colleagues, we all owe it to KP Mohan.
Okay. So the beat you had at the Hindu included 4 sports: hockey, football, table tennis, and cricket.
Yes.
We will come to cricket because that's inevitable. But let's start with hockey. Indian hockey is an enigma. It's very strange. I mean, my understanding of hockey is such, as a layman, because I don't follow the game. Back in the mid 20th century, India was ruling the roost, dominating the world. You know, they won, I don't know, 7 golds.
Yes, 7 goals.
And then in 1980, India wins a gold, and that is it. It just falls off the map. 3 years later, ironically, cricket, India wins a World Cup, which is cricket is a game played by a handful of countries, and the sport has gone through the roof. What is the reason behind both these things? The first question is, why has hockey declined?
Hockey decline, I think there were many factors. Poor administration, and the fact that AstroTurf came into play, and Indians took a while to adjust to AstroTurf, because there were not many AstroTurfs in the country. It was an issue, and then the game changed. With AstroTurf, it became very fast. It became very sturdy. It became a very robust sport. You had to be very strong. So Indians basically were skillful players. I mean, they relied more on skills than speed and power. So it took a while. Indians were always playing the catch-up game with the European countries, and Australians especially. They were very good. Pakistan was such a dazzling Pakistan hockey nation, and so Indians could not keep pace with the rest of the world, and also the fact that because there were not many heroes to follow. True, India won the 75 World Cup. It has never come close to winning the World Cup hockey after that, and then the 1980. The gold at the Moscow Olympics was again because there was a boycott, so not many, the big nations were missing.
But still,
gold is the gold. But hockey gradually took the backseat. Like you said, you mentioned 83 India won the Cricket World Cup, so there was a big boost for cricket. It changed the face of Indian cricket actually, in 1983 World Cup. But hockey was close to my heart, and not just why my heart. I mean, there were it had a big following. I have seen matches where you had to buy tickets to watch hockey. Mind you, imagine, you had to buy tickets to watch hockey and football at the Ambedkar Stadium, and hockey at the Shivaji Stadium. So there were quite a few reasons. And also poor administration. Hockey was not well administered. So all that has changed now. It has changed completely. They are well looked after, and it's a very fit team. It's doing well also. Hockey is again doing well. So credit to the players, credit to Hockey India, which has ensured that they get the best of facilities.
I read an article by Dhanraj Pillai. It came up on Facebook just under a week ago. He says that the Indian hockey team presently is as fit as the Aussies, the Dutch and the Belgians. When did this transformation take place?
I think it came with the advent of foreign coaches, foreign trainers.
Okay.
There's a lot of sports science involved now. Indian coaching methods improved. And there was a lot of this globalization kind of helped India understand that it had to shed its old style and try and play the kind of hockey which others play. So speed, strength, fitness, if you see, Dhanraj is absolutely right. I think Indians are as fit as Australians or Germans or the Dutch. And also, Ashwin, you should remember, earlier there used to be 2 halves. Now you have in 4 halves, each of 15 minutes duration, and also the fact that there is rolling substitution. So that has also helped you a lot. It's a very tactical thing, but it also allows the coach to use the best of players on the field all the time.
By the way, has the Indian Hockey League helped in any way? Has it played any role?
Definitely, it has. It has taken it has made hockey players very popular. It has taken hockey to the drawing room because there's like a lot of the telecast factor. I mean, broadcasting. It helped popularize the sport, and it brought money for hockey players. It brought recognition. It brought dignity to the sport because every time they would say, hockey doesn't bring you money. There is no great career, but now you can have a good career in hockey also.
Now moving on to football, that's another sport like hockey, but I think hockey was one step ahead of football. But India had a golden phase between 1951 and 1962. After that, football fell off the map. What happened to football now? Same thing as hockey?
Yeah, football. Football India. If you see, that was a golden period. What you mentioned, and 1962. 56 Olympics, they finished fourth at Melbourne, but 62 Asian Games at Jakarta was probably the golden moment of Indian football. Winning the gold in a strong field was a huge achievement. Much later, I think, if there was one moment, if one had to pick, it would be India beating UAE in a World Cup qualifier at Bangalore. Yeah. So it was many reasons: infrastructure, lack of infrastructure, lack of good football at grassroots level. That I think was a big huge factor because unless you have masses playing, you won't get quality. So you needed quantity, but it was not well channelized. And then gradually football tournaments disappeared, clubs were shut. I mean, if you see in recent times, many well-known clubs have shut. JCT, I remember, Club. So there was no recruitment for footballers in public sector. Private sector, of course, never showed any interest, and also the fact that there was lack of talent.
Has the ISL helped in any way? According to you?
ISL has helped. It has brought in money. Again, it has popularized the sport because it is shown on television, and people come and watch the matches at the venues. And also the fact that when it is franchisee driven, so there are jobs for footballers. Their financial security is taken care of. All this counts. Ultimately, when you play a sport, you have to run the kitchen also of the house. So
very true.
If it doesn't bring you money, why would anyone come and play that sport? So hockey, football, I think they have become professional sports now in India.
Yeah. What, according to you, is the best way to get crowds to watch football? Because I'll tell you why I'm asking you this question. I had a chance to spend about an hour and a half with Alessandro Del Piero in 2014. When he came down for the ISL, I was running the ISL that year.
Yes.
And he told me, I'd asked him this question. I said, why is it that Brazilians who are built like Indians are so skillful in football, and what do we lack? I mean, I know we lack the strength, but so do they. But what is it that they have? He says it's the pace of play. Indians don't let go of the ball, but Brazilians, they keep the game moving. And that's why they create opportunities. Is that the reason, or what, according to you, is it, sir?
Yeah, see, the style of play definitely matters. Skills, we had players who had the skills, but strength, speed, that is what counts in today's football. It's become a very robust, very sturdy sport. So these were two qualities which we lacked, and also the fact that there were not many competitions for the Indians to pursue. That I think was another drawback as far as India was concerned. There was not a very competitive professional league happening, so that again pulled the players back. But ISL has contributed, and now there is talk of it becoming more professional because it will be the main league now.
Okay. Now let's come to cricket. Now, in cricket, I'd first like to ask you about domestic cricket, because I've heard you've covered domestic cricket a lot. But what is your experience with domestic cricket, and how does that help you as a journalist?
Ashwin, I think I learned all my cricket covering domestic matches. First, it was local matches where one could sit with the players and watch the game. So you had a very different perspective. You watched it like a cricketer, followed like a cricketer. You got to know the nuances of the sport. Even if you play cricket at the club level, unless you play a very competitive sport, you can't get into the nitty gritty of that particular game. So that helped me a lot. And traveling for domestic matches, I'm so fortunate. I work for a great newspaper, The Hindu, which encouraged us to cover domestic matches. We traveled so much. I mean, Rakesh, Kamesh, in later years, Rajshekhar Rao, who's now with the ICC. Then another bright colleague of mine, Sarangi, who is now based in Calcutta, a wonderful hockey reporter, very good, compact, multi-sport reporter. So Rakesh, Kamesh, Sarangi, they are, I think, probably the finest you will find in the field today. So they have also gained. If you ask them, they all gained from domestic coverage. And again here, it was KP Mohan again who ensured that we covered, we went out and did matches. We didn't. He never liked if we would sit in the office and doing nothing. He would ensure go to the ground. You'll always get some news, and so that helped a lot. And domestic cricket, Ashwin, was so competitive. It was such a. I mean, I can't tell you. Watching these Test cricketers in domestic matches, it lifted the quality of the game also, and also allowed us access to these cricketers. Also allowed us some deep insight into the sport. Only after watching domestic matches, I could learn to understand the quality difference between local, domestic, and international cricket. So I think I learned a lot from covering Ranji Trophy, Duleep Trophy, Rani matches. Yeah.
And club cricket in Delhi, what kind of role has that played in shaping domestic cricket? Like domestic has played a role in shaping international. What are your views on club cricket in Delhi?
Club cricket everywhere. If you see the Chennai League, you played Chennai League, you know how competitive it is. You look at the KSCA League, again very competitive. Buchi Babu tournament, Moinudullah tournament in Hyderabad. The Bombay, you have so many competitive cricket games and leagues going on. And Delhi, it was basically the club's culture. These players, all these big players who have come, none of them came through any coaching camp of the DDCA. They've all come from clubs which were run by very, very renowned coaches. Mr. Gurcharan Singh, he was in charge of the National Stadium. Mr. Tarak Sinha, who ran the Sonnet Club. I mean, these are legendary names, and they have made the biggest contribution to Delhi cricket by producing players, creating a very competitive league in Delhi, the club culture. So I have always enjoyed watching club matches, and I've seen Sehwag play for a club. I've seen Virat Kohli play for a club. I've seen Gautam Gambhir play for a club. So these are all Ishant Sharma, Ashish Nehra, Akash Chopra. They were all very good club cricketers, and there they learned what should I say, the final points of the game, and graduated to play domestic, and then went on to play fabulous international cricket.
The funny thing about Delhi club cricket is it's all 40 over cricket. Whether it's Lala Raghuveer Singh or Om Nath Sood or whatever it is, it's all 40 over cricket.
Yeah.
How do you pick a state side, which is days cricket, on 40 over cricket, especially for bowlers who are used to bowling only 8 overs? How do they get to domestic cricket and bowl 30 overs a day?
I think it is that they're driven by this desire to play the bigger league. Okay. If you remember somebody like Shikhar Dhawan, he was a big scorer in local matches, and you just couldn't keep him out. So when he got the opportunity to graduate from 40 overs to junior cricket, he made a big mark, if you remember, for India. And then he had to wait for a while to play in the Indian team because it already had Sehwag and Gambhir, and then he would struggle to get into the team. But when he got the chance, if you remember his century on debut. My God, what an So they were all driven by the fact that they had to once they got a chance, they grabbed it.
Okay. Any interesting story about that phase in Delhi cricket when there was Raman Lamba, Ajay Sharma, Gursharan Singh? I don't know if Gursharan played for Delhi. He played for Punjab.
Yes, he
But
did. He did.
he did also. So KP
Yeah.
Bhaskar,
Yeah.
Manoj Pravakar. Any anecdote from that period? It's a very interesting phase.
Oh, very interesting. And you won't believe, Ashwin, I have seen KP Bhaskar sitting out, dropped for the match.
Oh.
Dropped means they couldn't accommodate him in the playing 11. Gursharan sitting out. I've seen Raman Lamba sitting out, Manoj Pravakar sitting out, Ajay
Wow.
Sharma sitting out. So imagine how strong, rich the Delhi team would have been for these if these players had to sit out. And I was lucky. I grew up watching these players from very close quarters. Amazingly competitive guys, and some of my very fond memories are Manoj Shabakar, Raman Lamba, KP Bhaskar, Ajay Sharma, Atul Vasan, Sanjeev Sharma, having chole bhature at the Bengali market or
Wow, okay.
at Nathus. Yeah, because there was a Raghubir cricket, if you remember,
Uh-huh.
Lal
Modern
Raghubir
school.
cricket, the modern school. So after the game, I would never miss a Sonnet Club match because it was such a very fantastic club. And after the match was over, we all would go and have chole bhature and lassi. So I have very fond memories of interacting with them, and we became friends. And the best thing was, Ashwin, that I could criticize them and still go out and have chole with them.
So that is the equation you built with them, because
Yes,
that's
yeah.
their respect for you as a journalist.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's fabulous. Now coming to international cricket, sir, there are a few issues that keep cropping up, and everybody keeps talking about it. The 5-day test format. People want to convert it to a 4-day test. Some test players say yes, it's a good idea. Some say it's not. What is your take on it?
I think it should be. There has always been a debate as far as Test cricket is concerned. People say it is dying, but if you watch the Ashes, if you would have watched India-Australia matches, I don't think Test cricket is dying. It is the cricket. So, because of the fact that the game has become so fast. It has changed. There are so many shots being played. So many shots being played means so many wickets falling quickly. So many test matches have ended in 4 days. So that's the idea. They feel that 4 days is enough for a test match. The span of a good match would be 4 days, and people also are they want result oriented games, and they would prefer 4-day matches. But I'm a traditionalist. I have grown up watching 4-day Ranji matches, then 5-day knockout matches in domestic cricket. So as far as I'm concerned, Test cricket should always be a 5-day affair. I would always want Test matches to be 5-day affairs, but you will have to change with time. If the players prefer, if they want matches to be 4 days, then let it be 4 days. If they want matches to be played with pink ball in floodlights, because that's crowds will come, so be it. Because you will have to change with time. You have to learn to accept what the public demands. And this young generation it loves the T20 brand more, but you have to preserve Test cricket.
Coming to the pink ball, do you think the pink ball should be played against a black side screen or white side screen? This is also a debate.
Yeah, but they have tried it out, and sighting would always be an issue. But majority, I think they prefer the black side screen. It's easier for them to spot in light when floodlights are on. So that debate is still on. Maybe it will after maybe trying out a few more seasons of pink ball cricket. They would find out ways of which would be the better side screen, because it all depends on the batsman.
Okay. This other issue about saliva on the ball that's come up, that's now created a furor. What is your take on it?
Saliva, as it is, was unhygienic earlier, but there are many bowlers who have not applied saliva. Still, they have taken wickets. And the other day, I was talking to Kumble. He had a very valid point. He said the decision was taken on the advice of the medical team, and which is right, because it's a very deadly virus spreading,
Mm-hmm.
and if they feel saliva can contribute to spreading the virus, so they had to leave it out. And the fact remains that a bowler, if he needs saliva to make the ball talk, then he will have to think twice before playing cricket, because you can't just say that if I'm not allowed to use saliva, I can't bowl. You will have to learn to bowl, and as
Very true.
Kumble suggested, they will have to use they will have to change the nature of the pitch, make it more bowler friendly, leave more grass. So
Mm-hmm.
these things will come. We'll have to wait for the West Indies England series before we come to conclusions about how the ball will behave without the saliva. But there have been eras where bowlers have not used the saliva and they've done well.
What is your take on the IPL? Everybody knows the contribution it has made to the game and how it has completely transformed the game.
Yeah, I think Ashwin, IPL has changed the way cricket is played. It has changed the way people watch the game. There's so much of fun now. I mean, you can see families come to watch cricket at the IPL. There's so much of noise. There's so much of there is excitement. There is action, and there is a result. So, but that is what the spectators want. They want a result, and we have had some fantastic matches in IPL, and you have to accept the fact that it has sustained cricket, because there's a lot of money to be made by the players, by the franchises, and in turn, the board also gains. It gets a lot of money, and which in turn it shares with its affiliated units. The infrastructure has improved. The match fees for players has improved.
Drastically.
Drastically. So IPL has made a huge contribution in, I think, sustaining Test cricket also, because you don't make profits holding a Test match. So it is IPL which kind of compensates, which ensures that boards are take the BCCI. It is the richest cricket board, one of the richest sports bodies in the world, essentially after the IPL had come in. So IPL, I think, has been cricket's savior, and it will continue to grow, and it will continue to attract a different kind of spectators. And why not? If a majority of cricket watchers today are young, and if they want to watch IPL, if they want to watch more of T20, then you will have to accept it. You will have to give them what they want to see and not what you want them to see.
Now, this brings us to sports marketing, because it's so closely linked to whatever has happened in cricket and other sports globally. Now, if you look at the IPL, there is a vertical going from cricket or from the property IPL into almost every industry that you can imagine: medical industry, the travel and tourism industry, the food industry, the ticketing industry, the branding industry, name it, insurance industry. Everyone is involved in some way or the other. How do you think sports marketing has changed the scenario, not just in India, but globally? Because when you started off, sport was amateur.
Absolutely amateur. And today, if you see, they are not just sports writers. There are business reporters who are specializing in sports, business of sports. It's a very different subject, which I am not good at, because I may not understand the nuances of business reporting, but I have my colleagues who do some wonderful sports stories with these marketing people, and sports marketing is an integral part of sports now. You have managers who project the sportsmen and help them get endorsements, and then there are managers who have brought money into sport, right? And then I remember our dear friend S. Ganesh, who was with Adidas. He worked so much for these players. He ensured that they got good money from endorsements, and also the fact that it made them self-reliant. I mean, it ensured they were making money by playing the sport, but these endorsements through sports marketing ensured that they lived a very very secure life. They don't really have to worry about what will happen to them once they retire or once they stop playing. And sports marketing, I think, is very much an integral part of sports today. It has made it very commercial, which is good because a player, when you can think of a career as a sportsman now, and not just in cricket, even hockey, football, swimming, table tennis, badminton. Look at how badminton has grown, Ashwin. It has, yeah. I mean, amazing. Yeah. What Prakash Padukone made or what Gopichand made, badminton was nothing. They really had to struggle on their own. But today, if you see what Saina and Sindhu earn, and they are among the richest sportsmen of the country, which is good. It speaks well for the sport, and I think it speaks well for the fact that you can look at sports as a career now.
And coming to technology, has technology hurt sport more or benefited it more?
I think it has helped. It has helped because once again, if you see, it has ensured that there are less errors because you take the help of technology to come to decisions in hockey, in football, even now in badminton and cricket. Obviously, cricket there is DRS and so many innovations now. So technology has helped. It has also helped in the coverage part of a sport. If you see, it is a spectacle now. So many cameras are used to telecast, to showcase even say a golf match or a boxing bout or a wrestling bout. Kabaddi, look at the kabaddi coverage, amazing from so many angles. And badminton also. Cricket, there are so many cameras. You would know, I mean, what? More than 20 cameras on the ground.
More than nearly 40 cameras, sir.
Nearly 40 cameras. So it is a spectacle. If it has become a spectacle, it is essentially because of technology. So those who are watching it from their home on the television, they get all these different angles and also these innovations where the commentator will speak to the player on the ground. So you get very interesting insight into the sport. So I mean, say a captain on the field is talking to the commentator and explaining his tactics, which normally a viewer would never get to know. Unless you are part of the field team on the field. So all these are welcome changes.
Yes. I'd like to ask you about you're an author, and now you're coming up with 2 more books as we hear. But you're an author. You've written 4 books or 5 books
4
so far.
Yeah, 4. So, I had the first one was the Virendra Sehwag biography.
Okay.
And then I wrote one on films with my dear friend Ziaur Salam. He was a fantastic film critic with The Hindu, and Anuj Kumar, my another film critic from The Hindu. We 3 did Suresh Kohli also was part of the book. So 4 of us we came out with a book which was launched by Gulzar Saab. So for me, that was, I mean, Gulzar Saab is a very good, very well known to Zia. And me, that was more exciting than seeing the book in my hand. I mean, just to get to meet Gulzar Saab. And when the book was launched, I stood next to him and he put his arm around my shoulders. So for me, that was a huge memory I will carry always with me. And then, of course, I wrote one. Yeah, and then when I wrote before the World Cup, the last World Cup, on the Indian team, just introducing the players. And then, and then, of course, the Virat Kohli biography in 2016, where I was so lucky. I remember, Ashwin, for the Sehwag launch, Rahul Dravid came all the way from Bangalore, and he did not allow me to buy the ticket for him. I mean, yes. And for the Virat Kohli launch also, I had some wonderful people coming and gracing the stage, where Kapil Dev, Anil Kumble, Virendra Sehwag, Ravi Shastri, they were all on the stage. And it was a fabulous function, launch. And I must tell you, it was made all the more livelier by some fantastic comparing by Radhakrishnan Srinivasan, your good friend.
Yeah. He's very good at his job, for sure.
I must tell you that there is one cricketer, a very voracious reader. He reads. He is. I mean, on tours. I remember he would take a break. Whenever he would take a break, come back to India, he would bring back Sports Star magazines for me, and some film magazines. But Sports Star he would always remember. Political magazines he would bring for us to read, and then he had this habit of, if he would finish a book, he would leave it there, because I remember he left a book in the press box. I picked it up, and then next day I said, "Sir, you have you forgot your book." He said, "No, I finished it." I said, "So which means if you finish, you leave it there?" He said, "Yeah." So then I said, "Then why don't you keep those books for me?" So at the end of the tour, I had four books.
Wow.
And he finished. He was a voracious reader, and he's right behind you. If you see the book on the table, Mr. Sunil Gavaskar.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
talking about him. He is amazing. I mean, I've not seen a more voracious book reader among cricketers. I know Rahul Dravid. I know Urkeri Raman reads a lot. Navjot Singh Sidhu, you'll be surprised. He used to read a lot, and not many others. But Mr. Gavaskar, oh my God, and of course Mr. Bishan Singh Bedi. He has a fantastic collection of cricket books. Amazing.
Really?
Yes, amazing. When he sleeps, there are around 20 books around him. You know.
My God.
Yeah, he says, "I don't know when I would love to pick up a book and read." So, and that book behind you is an article by me on Mr. Gavaskar. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, I have that book with me where he is signed on that page.
So this book was also gifted to me by him.
Oh,
so I will.
Nice. Oh,
so what I'll do is I'll get a signature of yours on that page on where you've got an article now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What is your, if you had to give two pieces of advice to a young budding journalist?
Yeah,
what would they be?
I would say most important is to watch matches. You can learn only from watch matches. Plus, you should make a habit of writing every day. Even if you're not covering a game, maybe write 250 words. You can maintain a logbook, or these days you have your computer, so you can save those reports. And but writing every day will help you improve, and also you have to read a lot, because when you read different writers, you learn different expressions. Your language improves by reading books, by reading newspapers. Newspapers you have to read. You have to read newspapers, because I would never miss reading news reports from my contemporaries. I had some very wonderful colleagues in the profession. I would like to mention Manoj Vatsayana. He used to work with the Hindustan Times, then he shifted to BFP. Absolutely fabulous writer, a brilliant writer. I mean, you had to read him. And from the past, Mr. Raghunath Rao, I loved reading him. I mean, he was such a great writer, Mr. R. Sriman. But I would also like these young readers to see if they can go back and read reports written by Mr. K.P. Mohan. He wrote on athletics, he wrote on cricket, he wrote on everything. Golf, he was the first to write golf. When newspapers, it was not known a reporter to go and cover a golf tournament. He was the one. Journalists covering golf tournaments. Otherwise, newspapers would have golf correspondents. All golfers who would write for newspapers. But he was the one. So he has been a flawless journalist. If you have to learn, you see how he develops his copy, how he presents, it's a package, complete package is report. So that is how it should be. And for me, Ashwin, I always took it as I was writing a letter to my mother. Because I would go to a match, and for me it was like describing the match to my mother. Because when she bought me a ticket in 1969, she would wait for me in the evening, and I would go back and narrate the whole day's play to her. And then she would say, good. And then in later years, of course, she couldn't. She was not good at English. She used to read Marathi, But my idea was that I should write in a manner, in a simple manner, where even my mother would be able to understand what I am writing.
Little did she know that you're going to make this a profession, narrating the story to people.
Oh yes, yes,
After the
yeah.
day's play. Little did she
Yes,
know.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And when I would go on tours, my father would keep all my clippings. I still,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I gave up. He, of course, he is no more. And
Mm-hmm.
then I have kept a couple of the clippings which he had preserved.
Collected.
Yeah,
Okay.
collected. So, but my mother, she would only see my name, and that was it, because she
She'd be
couldn't read.
happy.
Yeah, she would be happy just seeing my name. So, very
That's
fond memories. And in fact, my younger brother Ajay is a cricket freak. He a very good student of the game. And then
mm-hmm.
my son,
Uh-huh.
he used to play cricket, and he almost made it to the Delhi under 14 team, but a
Oh.
back injury, a back injury held him back.
Mm.
And but now he's I'm happy he's writing well, and not because he's my son. He writes better than me, so I'm sure he
Oh.
will do well for himself as a writer. He doesn't want to become a journalist.
Chip off the old block, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wish he'll be better than me. Yes.
Like to ask you about, magical moments in your career. If you had to describe 2 or 3 magical moments, what would they be? Sporting moments with
Sporting,
legends.
yeah. I mean, for me, one was meeting Nelson Mandela,
Mm-hmm.
1992 on the South tour to South Africa, getting to meet Gary Sobers when we had come to National Stadium in 1985, I think, and getting to meet Betzer brothers, twins in
Uh-huh.
England, a very magical moment for me. There are many moments. Meeting with Richards, interviewing him in Antigua, and then covering a concert, and then meeting, writing about Jagjit Singh, the Ghazal
Oh.
master. Yeah, and then because I did a lot of, I covered some music concerts also for the Hindu, thanks to Zia
Mm.
Salam.
Mm.
And these were some of the magical moments. And then, of course, the 2001 Test match at Calcutta. I
Lakshman
covered,
Dravid.
yes, and the tied semi-final of the 1999 World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
That was again. And every time, Ashwin, I landed a report in time from Sharjah was
Mm-hmm.
an achievement because of the communication issues. And those were magical moments. Every time my report landed in time, for me
Mm-hmm.
that was a magical moment.
Wow. If you, Mr. Vijay Lokapoli, were to turn 19 tomorrow, what profession would you pursue, and why?
Without doubt, I think because of the difficult times we are going through and the way I have seen these health workers take care of the COVID patients, I would love to become a doctor. I would love to become a nurse, or I would like to be a health worker. Maybe even if it means I have to be a technician, but I would love to be to associate with the profession of medicines, so that I can serve mankind. Because I
Wow.
think that's the thought. I think most of us have these
Hmm.
days. You only have respect for these health workers. If without them, we would not be where we are. So I would love to be a doctor. Yes.
That's great, sir. So thank you so much for being here on the show with us. It has been an absolute honor. And looking forward to, I believe you make excellent coffee. So I'm really going to take you up on that offer. And looking forward to having some
Yeah.
coffee at your place when I can get out of this place.
Yes, Ashwin. I forgot to tell you that is one thing you remember. You asked me what I have the skills I have picked up. I have not only picked up. I can make you good coffee. You come
Uh-huh.
home, I'll
Uh-huh.
make you a fantastic omelette also. That is what. Yes, I can make you. I can serve you half fry, sunny side up. I can make you a good a cheese omelette also, and with lovely toast. So I'll look forward to hosting you. Not just breakfast. I can make you aloo ki sabzi and rice and dal
Wow.
also.
Perfect. Before we sign off, I have a little story to narrate.
Yes.
in 2018, I think, you took me, my friend Deepak, his wife and kids to Chandni Chowk,
Yes,
to
Chenaram.
Mr. Hari Gidwani's whatever shop
Shop.
that he has. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I ate 4 bhaturas. Everything
Yes.
was fine then. It was a fabulous meal. Then you asked us if we want to go have lassi.
Yes.
Of course, we said, why not? It was early in the morning.
Yeah.
I had 4 meetings lined up that day. I went with you. We said, lassi, will you have makhan marke or malai marke or whatever? I said, yes, why not? I had that lassi.
Yes.
And I came home. I took a shower. And I just said, I sat on my whatever chair I had at home, facing the window. And I said, I'm just going to take a half an hour nap. This was 9:30 a.m. I woke up at 4 p.m. So all the meetings went out of the window. So that's my lasting memory of you, sir. So I would love to do that again.
Oh, definitely. Chole sabzi and puri sabzi and Hari Gidwani Chenaram. And then walk down to Gyani, have the lassi, and
For
go
sure.
sleep. So that is what you
Exactly.
can do on a
This
Saturday.
time the agenda will be 2 sleeps. So I will do that. Cool.
Definitely. Then you can have 2 lassis, not 1.
Perfect. Lovely stuff. Thank you so much and really looking forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you very, very much for having me here.